All right, in tech news,
Yes.
how do you guys feel? So you would have seen this maybe 3 years ago. A guy made lab-grown meat, and he made it into a patty. He made enough of it that he could make like a meat patty out of it that had been grown and eaten.
He didn't grow it out of a live cow.
You get like cells from the cow, like in a biopsy,
Right.
like muscle
Like
tissue.
when you get a mole removed.
Yeah.
Ah, right.
And you can then put them in a cell culture. Like they get like a certain fluid. Talk about that later. But it's got all the proteins and stuff that it needs to grow. So if you put the cells in it, then it causes the cells to start reproducing. And like every 24 hours, apparently, you double the amount of cells that you have.
Sounds like a healthy culture to be around.
So anyway, I guess now, so in 2016, a company called Memphis Meats made a beef meatball.
Where is Memphis Meat?
Tasted delicious. I'm not sure. This year they managed to make chicken and duck. So they actually made a fried chicken dish and had like a food tasting guy come and taste it, and he said it tasted just like chicken. Like it was a really good fried chicken.
Oh wow!
Was it like a famous dude?
No, he's just like a food critic.
Okay.
From the area.
It counts as real, like it counts as
It's
meat.
made from muscle cells that are like meat, but they're just not sourced from an animal.
Well,
like
but
they're
would you get
originally
this-
sourced from an animal.
does it have the same nutritional value?
Well, it's the same cells that you're eating.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Why aren't we growing people this way? Or like bits of people this way?
They are actually.
Okay.
So people are doing that. People are working on. You can make the cell cultures into a sort of 3D printable structure.
Yeah.
And you impregnate it with the cells, and then eventually the cells eat away at the structure, and you make something that's formed in the shape that you want it.
Yeah.
So this sounds awesome for people who would have like burns and you can put skin on, right?
Just grow back.
Or
There's other things that are like. There's a thing called the skin gun, which is actually amazing for burns.
Skin gun.
They make like a mixture of your skin stem cell version stuff, and they spray it on, and then it just regrows your skin perfectly.
I think
Wow.
stick down them
Completely
shooting and like a web of.
Apparently,
skin.
it's getting held up by some regulation stuff, but it would be amazing. I've seen videos and they look incredible, and the test results look crazy. So.
Skin gun.
I don't want to shut down all
Sounds
the
so
guns.
dirty, hey.
But
They should
this,
change the name of that.
well, like
job.
bigger than that, like we currently eat too much meat,
Ooh.
and it's like destroying the environment.
Tell me about it.
I agree.
The methane produced by cows is 30 times worse than CO2, and I think agriculture is about 20% of our greenhouse emissions.
It's a lot of cows.
On top of that, it takes an enormous amount of land to produce meat, because you not only have to have the cows on land, but you also need to grow all the food for them, and they actually take heaps of kilograms of food to make 1 kilogram of meat, so you end up with like way less food at the end.
And milk.
And water.
They make the milk.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay. Oh, right. As in at the end.
They're
you get
producing more than just their body.
Well, it'll be a different ratio for milk. They don't use milk cows for meat. They have meat cows and they have milk dairy cows. They're different.
I learned something today.
So anyway, and it takes heaps of water as well. So they project that the population by like 2050 or something will be like 10 billion people.
How many cows?
And also
They want to reduce it. To
there's a
10,000.
massive increase in the number of people who can afford to eat meat as well. So like we belong to like the richest, probably 10% of the world. So we eat like, relative to the rest of the world, a crazy amount of meat, because it's really expensive everywhere else. If you come from a poorer country, you eat way more carbohydrates, way more plants. Like the amount of meat in a dish is way less because it costs so much. So, but as people get more wealthy, like from poorer countries, they're obviously going to want to eat more meat, right? So the amount that we need to produce will go up. There is like an insane number more cows on Earth than there is humans, because we have to like sustain a massive amount of like chicken.
Because you got to kill a
cow and stuff. Yeah, like I think there's like some billions of cows eaten in just America alone every year.
That's a lot of cows.
Yeah.
So if only we were so crazy about growing more trees, right?
I know.
Well, you
The lungs
can't.
of
We're
the
actually cutting down trees to make room for grazing land for cows. So right now in the Amazon, they're cutting down rainforests to make room for like more beef.
So we're killing
production.
ourselves twice.
Basically, yeah.
So even if you don't care about veganism from a moral standpoint,
Yeah.
you could become a vegan from like a conservatist standpoint. Is that the right word?
You could end up becoming a vegan because it'll be way too expensive for everyone to have meat.
Right.
Or stuff like this might come along and would actually work. So what this does is because it's just producing the cells, there's no waste or anything like that. It's like way more efficient. Like
it doesn't
more
fart.
efficient. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
sitting there doing all these inefficient processes. You're literally just making the thing that you actually want.
Giant lab instead of a big field.
So this is crazy. There's a quote from Winston Churchill
Uh-oh.
in 1931 talking about the future. He was in like a newspaper talking about the future. And he said, "We shall escape the absurdity of growing a whole chicken in order to eat the breast or wing by growing these parts separately under a suitable medium."
Ooh.
1931.
Winston had it going on.
Jeez.
Perfect timing.
It's amazing. Apparently this was originally done in 2002, but now people are... And the idea was for space journeys that you could grow the meat on the spaceship so that they would have meat there.
Matt Damon could have grown space chicken.
Yeah.
Do you think when this taster guy came in, that when the chicken one came out, he went, "It tastes like chicken,"
He did actually
That's
say
what
that.
and all the scientists just pissed themselves
Love.
No, because that's what they
I'm
wanted.
sure. Okay.
That was the
Yeah.
idea.
Still.
They
That's
sell it.
literally why they
What do
got
you
it
think?
in there.
Everyone, they were all just like,
He ate it and he literally looked up and he was like, "That tastes like chicken."
Classic.
But as
Let
if
it
you, as
pop
if you
the
would, because
champagne.
you'd be surprised, right? Like if it was
Yeah.
grown in a petri dish and you ate something and it's like, "This tastes like chicken." I watched him cutting it and it looked exactly like chicken, which was pretty amazing.
like well cooked.
Now, just going back to what Ellie was asking earlier about milk. So if they're going to reduce the
Go make that milk. Was that right?
so if they plan to reduce the population of cows on account of cows on the earth, just with whatever.
Go on.
Where we can get all our milk from?
Well, they're
Is
separate.
everybody
They're
gonna-
separate cows, Julian.
Yeah, I understand. But the goal isn't the goal so that not just the eating component, but also for the emissions, right?
Yeah.
So
There's actually another company that's trying to make really similar products out of like plants. So there's two approaches to this.
Like almond milk.
Is you make you make stuff that would have been sourced from animals just out of plant proteins, which you can actually do because the same proteins that are in animals obviously come from plants because that's where we get them from. So if you can combine them in the right way, so there's companies that make like meat substitute patties. Apparently they're getting pretty good.
they're
They're good enough to fool people into thinking they're actually eating meat.
Woolly sells these really good meat replacement patties.
Yeah.
Yum.
There's a company that makes them. It's like made out of like the proteins from peas, and they use beetroot juice to make it look like it's bleeding. Like there's like juice red juice coming out of it. So, and I think they get the sizzle right on the pan, but I think the interior they're still working on getting it quite like to the level. The tricky stuff about growing the meat is that you grow like a muscle cell, but like a lot of the meat flavor comes from all the stuff that's connecting all the muscle cells,
bone.
connective tissue, yeah, bone, skin, all of it like comes into like giving it
Cartilage.
flavor. The collagen in the skin. They've actually extracted the thing that gives it the meaty flavor, hem, I think it's called. It's spelled Heme, but you can get that from a plant. So a lot of meat replacement products are coming out that have that in it from a plant, and it gives it that like umami taste that it has, like meaty flavor.
Yeah.
Meatiness.
I love meat.
I've never heard
I
the
love
word
umami.
That is the fifth flavor that your tongue can actually sense.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a thing. It's like
It's a
it's
thing.
in like tomatoes
I watch MasterChef.
and seaweed, I think, has it. Japanese cooking uses it quite a lot. It's like really important in their cooking. Anyway, there's another company that's called Finless Foods. They're trying to do the same thing with fish, which would be amazing because
Yes,
we're running out of
please.
fish stocks. And like stuff like salmon is so bad. Like the where they farm it, apparently
crazy.
it like is actually destroying wild fish stocks. So we might run out of salmon if we keep farming it the way we are.
Far out.
Because the way they have the farms, apparently they grow like they have heaps of parasites in them. So the farms are just spewing out parasites into the water because they're like just enclosed areas in the ocean.
Fish poo.
Oh.
So they're basically spewing out all these parasites that the wild fish then catch, and it kills off wild fish stocks. So,
You
yeah.
know who that would aggravate?
Who?
Aquaman.
That's true.
Him in Justice League and how they dealt with him talking to fish is friggin' hilarious. It was one great thing about that movie was how they handled that. But go on.
That was so
I thought that was some kind of segue.
I didn't know how to bring that back.
I was
wasn't sure
going
where
to
we're
say, wait a
going
minute,
with
he
that.
might have more to say about this before I wrap up.
Okay. No, it's like, hopefully it'll get heaps cheaper. They have to figure out another way to get the culture, the stuff that they grow it in, because they actually have to get that out of bovine fetuses at the moment. So apparently they're a very good source of this culture that everyone uses for everything. Like researchers use it for growing humans cells, like any cells. It comes out of like this thing. But
It comes out of this thing.
yeah, out of a fetus of a calf when it's
So
still. No, but they can figure out other ways to do it. It's just because it's just been researchers. So the volumes aren't like big for this at the moment. So like similar to insulin, they've managed to genetically modify yeast to produce insulin. So now our people's insulin doesn't come from animals. It used to come from animals.
okay, all right.
So similarly,
So that's the
the
end
end
goal.
goal is to produce a different way of producing this. Because there's no way they can get it as much as they need from
'Cause
just calf.
This won't
It
be
would defeat the purpose.
won't be viable until
Exactly.
it's cheaper than real cows.
Yeah, but they're all making pretty good. At the moment, it's $18,000 per kilogram. But that's because it's like prototypes.
That's a lot.
It's like
Bloody
people
surge
growing
prices.
it. Like there's
Tell you
lots
what.
of like labor involved, I guess. And
Mhm.
yeah,
So you
So,
don't you no longer go to the butcher to buy meat. You go to the
everyone,
pharmacy.
chemist.
everyone who's
Imagine you make it by yourself. Is that the idea?
well, that was the other thing was they like well, we can get the beneficial cells and stuff. We can tune how much fat's in something. We can actually make it healthier.
Imagine if
And
the
then
kitchen became a chemistry.
One of them
set.
went really
Yeah.
weird and was like, imagine if you could take one of your own cells and reproduce it and then like eat it. Like you could eat humans. And I was like,
Yeah.
why would you go there in this article? You're trying to convince people that this is a good idea.
What if I could
That's
get
the
a
worst
bit
thing you could have said.
of Usain Bolt and cook him up and eat that? Would I go faster?
That feels weirdly racist.
It's not racist. He's the fastest man on earth.
True.
Fair
I
enough.
don't think
what
anyone
race it
thinks.
is.
I don't think anyone thinks eating him would make you faster.
I'm sure there's someone in the world. who thinks
Well, if you went down that road, it would get racist.
Why?
Because that's a pretty African thing, right? Like eating people.
You would know, right, Julian? Julian, do you do that?
You guys.
Not eating people, but like the idea of
Consuming
adopting
their powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that in one of our other topics. People eating people to try and get there
Skills and,
and
youth.
get wealthy.
Things like that.
That's interesting.
It was
I've never
happening in
heard of it.
Malawi.
Okay,
People thought they
You're
were
not into that.
vampires.
That's enough about eating each other, am I right? This has been Translating episode
68.
68. It's been crazy. We are Group Settings. This is Trend Settings. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, but definitely on YouTube because that's where the high quality stuff goes. That's where the high quality stuff goes. And if you're in the podcast app, like us there, share us there because that's where the real stats come from. That's where the real listeners come from.
The
Unless you're
real
listening
deal.
somewhere else, then you're real too. I believe in you. But my name is Ali.
I'm Jazzy Jules.
Jono.
My name is Chris.
Thanks for listening / watching. We'll see you next week on Trend Settings where we talk about everything that is trending in the week.
In the week.
Bye.
Pop, pop.